any issues not listed on the agenda that are within the purview of the authority. Comments on matters that are listed on the agenda may be made at the time the board is considering each item. The time on it will be 2 minutes. Do we have any public comments?
Yes, we have public comment from Pat Brandis.
Not? Okay. I am Pat Brandis. I'm a resident of the Los Santos Ranch community. When I spoke at your meeting in September, I urged the board not to approve the SEIR in October after the public only had about 10 days to review the responses to our comments. However, the board at their October 23rd, 24 meeting did unanimously adopt the resolutions for the final EIR report for the Valley Link Rail project. I'm very disappointed in the board's action of approving the SER on October 23rd, 2024. The responses and mitigation measures associated with our community's comments in the SEIR are wholly inadequate. The majority of responses were the comment is noted and will be presented to the authority decision makers and when considering approvals for the Valley Link project. This is vague and unclear response to our community's concerns. In addition, several comment responses were that since we did not identify any inaccuracy within the environmental analysis of the draft SEIR, no revisions were necessary. We did indicate that the mitigation measures proposed were inadequate because although they said they would result in less than significant impact, in our opinion, it would not. Another common response to our comments was that our comments reflect the judgment and preferences of the commenter, but does not provide specific data to support their concerns regarding the adequacy of the SEIR analysis. But that is also not an adequate response to our concerns and comments. We found little specific information in the draft SEIR of which to respond to. I urge the board to respond or to rescind their approval of the SEIR until these comments and concerns are adequately addressed. As a minimum, the SEIR team should meet with our community as a group, not just at the farmers market as they wander through and discuss each of our comments and their specific responses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other public comments?
Yes, we have Vani Dot.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Vandy Dart. I live in Santos Ranch, and I was in front of you at the last meeting, urging you not to approve the SEIR, and I show you the map of our community, how this will affect our community, and I was deeply disappointed that you approved it. But a few of you did comment and ask Mr. Sheridan and Valley Link to meet with our community to discuss it further, to talk with us. We have not heard from Valley Link. What we've seen last Friday is a public notice in Tracy Press. Valley Link put a public notice in Tracy Press and will meet the community at large, everyone in Tracy at the farmers market, mind you. This is the community. Farmers market is 8 miles away. You voted to affect this entire community of over 1,000 people with children. The notice is in farmers market, Saturday. If we can't make it to farmers market, we can't talk to Valley Link. Do you think that's fair to us? Here's our community. Whatever you approve for Valley Link affect this entire community. I showed you this map last time when I presented in front of you. We are on private wells and septic tank. The wind out in Tracy blows from the west to east. We are east of your facility. And hydrogen is highly flammable, low ignition. They make bomb out of hydrogen. What do you think happened to our community if something happened? We will hold each one of you accountable if that happens. Please rescind it. Something for our community. If this happens in your community, I am pretty sure you'll be up here with me, standing up here and talk just like we do. Listen to our voice, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Alice Wilcox. Okay, thank you. That's it for public comment.
Recording in progress.
Four B, please, for clarification.
Okay, 4B for clarification. Any others? Not seen any. I'll go ahead and ask for a motion for the remainder.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right. Did you get that, Candace?
Sorry, I had a motion from, and second. Thank you.
Take your choice.
I came to, we didn't get it. Bedoya.
Yes.
Howard.
Aye.
Hudson.
Aye.
Washon.
Yes.
Horace.
Yes.
Nyberg.
Aye.
You.
Yes.
Yes.
Testa. Zuba.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I.
Aye. All right, so Director McWorson has questions on item for section B on the treasurer's report for July, August, and September 2024.
Thank you, Chair, and Tamara Edwards to speak on behalf of this.
Okay. Where's?
Tamara, can you hear us?
Oh, that means I have to turn. it on.
I can hear you, but I cannot hear anybody else.
Okay, I will go forward without, oh, here we are, right here. Just a few questions, easy questions. As we move forward with this project, with more and more funding and requirements coming in and operational requirements, I'm keen on what we call liquidity strategy. And that's a fancy way for saying, do we have enough cash to move forward? And what are we doing with our cash? And how is it being preserved as we move forward? And I noticed in the report, you had 3 months worth of data. And I'll just take September. I noticed that you have 3 categories of cash and cash equivalents. One is your money market account, and the other is a CD, and the checking account is what it is. I 3 kind of questions on that is, how are you defining the needs? And this is more of a fundamental question as we move forward. Are you keeping excess liquidity in or under the under amount required in the accounts? How does that transfer in cash work? And to be more specific, my eyeball was on that CD. Not a lot of money, but a significant amount for this this project here. So I was wondering, how can you provide me kind of a really quick synopsis of how you identifying how much you keep in the checking account, put it simply, and moving around between the checking account, the money market, and locking it up in the CD?
So I will let Will speak to the CD in a minute. As far as the other money, this is I don't know, it's a thing. I don't want to call it a concern, but Rail does not have any prepaid money except for the 5 million that they got from the state,
Okay.
the money that LAFTA
I
loaned
did
them.
vote. I voted for the minutes. Oh, now I can see myself.
Good.
Can you please mute?
Thank you.
What
Director
do I have to do? Mute?
So, and 3 million of that 5
What do we
million
have?
that
Hit
from the
that
state is sitting in
again?
that CD. In terms of moving money around, there's no moving. We bill MTC or TERSIP. Those are pretty much our 2 that we bill. And once that money comes in, Candace uses it all for accounts payable. There really isn't any liquidity. Will is working with MTC right now to help with cash flow, But in terms of like moving money between money market, the money market's low because honestly, the accounts payable needs, come up faster than the reimbursement from the prior month. So, but I'll let Will speak to the CD and kind of long-term plans.
Can everyone hear me okay? So as Tamara indicated, we were very fortunate that when we were able to secure the 5 million of state budget earmark funds through AB 179, that in that funding agreement with the California Department of Transportation, we were provided immediate access to those monies. And that as such, we were able, according to their guidelines, to put those into an interest-bearing account, such that we can generate interest earnings on those funds immediately, and then to be able to draw down on them, as we're actually looking to use them for targeted activities for the purpose. So that is where we have put those monies across not only the CD, but a money market account, and then have been moving those back and forth as appropriate in relationship to our need, for cash flow. And so as Tamara indicated, this has been kind of a challenge for us, relative to the nature of our typical type of reimbursement agreements that we have with our other state funding partners, where we effectively have to incur and pay those expenses before we can seek reimbursement. We are, however, working with MTC now on a strategy that they employ on other projects for small, agencies like ourselves, that help to effectively accelerate, that process.
Okay, that answers most of my questions. So you're working on strategies to speed up the cycle, basically. So
That
you
is
don't have those timing issues. Who's that CD with right now?
BMO.
Oh, it's with MIMO. Okay, and what is it? It looks like it's locked in. What's the term on that?
We do it for 3-month period,
Did you
and those are 5% interest rates.
And that's why I kept seeing
That's right.
333.
And that's effectively how we've been trying to maintain, kind of access to those, to be able to manage what our actual demands are for payments to our contractors.
Okay, I have two quick questions. I know you can answer them. One is, in my short time here, I don't think I saw the investment policy. Do we have an investment policy?
So I was gonna say for these, we do not have, I would say, an investment policy, as we've kind of managed these, within kind of as an account to our existing kind of banking, portfolio, if you will.
Okay, usually agencies have an investment policy. I was just wondering, maybe we can consider looking into that into the future. That would be my recommendation.
Yes, and we have talked about that as, we would be in a position where we're managing more of these types of funds. I'd say at this point in time, these are effectively, whether it's a CD, a money market, or a typical kind of checking and savings account or an account within BMO.
Okay, and then the final one is more.
So I think that our attorney had, go ahead.
Go
We
ahead.
can certainly bring one to you.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not a problem.
I think you know where I'm going.
Yep.
Okay, thanks. And then my final one is it's technical, easy technical. There's a negative fund balance in here, and it's the sale of buses and equipment. How can we see a negative balance that keeps getting bigger? There's probably a really easy question. I just don't understand them.
That I'll defer to tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, just to clarify, are you looking at the annual financial reports or on the?
No, just the
balance sheet?
treasurer's report. I decided I wasn't going to ask you anything
Okay.
on the audited.
And Tamara totally appreciates that.
Okay.
So the negative fund balance, and keep in mind that like the sale of buses and equipment, you guys haven't done any of that. I just took those account names from what LAFTA had. The fund balance is actually a really easy number. It is the difference between the revenue and expenses. So on your balance sheet, that's kind of, at this point, we would have had 550 in September, 551,755 that needed to be billed out. That had not been reimbursed yet.
Oh, so it's a timing issue. And at some point in the year, does that go to zero, or is it a continuous?
Exactly. June 30th, with all the accruals, the year-end accruals, it goes to zero. If I did my job right, it goes to zero.
So tomorrow, you and I have had lots of interesting conversations. Didn't want to get too detailed with you. So thank you very much, Tamara. I appreciate that my questions answered. Thank you.
Yeah, and with regards to the policy, you have to remember that Valley Link is, depending on MTC. MTC is the big money holder.
Yeah.
And so when we get more, become more established and when the project starts going, that's when the board was to bring something forward. So I always like to tell people it's kind of like a startup, right?
I'm sure.
All right, so
But-
I will go ahead and ask for a motion for,
Sorry, I'm sorry about that. You have kind of answered the questions. Why do you want to invest money you don't have? No, Valley Link does not generate any income or anything. Depends on the goodwill of the people, so.
I'm
just
sorry, I don't
wondering,
understand that
you were
question. There
looking
is
for a
money in the
policy.
bank.
You were looking for a policy on investment.
Yes.
How will you invest money that you don't have? I'm just curious.
Well, if you're asking me, the
Yes.
question is, you set a process and you have a methodology, and that's what most private and public entities have. And if we don't have that, then we should start thinking about that.
I'm
That's
just
what I'm trying to
asking,
tell
the
you.
question is, how do you want to invest money that you don't have? You
Well,
don't own any money.
again,
yeah.
we get grants.
So-
There are monies that are coming in. Okay?
And so that's why I made that comment that as we become more established, then we will be looking at a policy.
And maybe just Chair, I could add that certain grants are different. The ones we have from MTC is different than the state earmark we had. And that was the only grant that we've had where we've been able to take that money and invest it. And as we get other types of grants, they don't come around too often. When we did get that $5 million grant, it gave us the opportunity to invest that money. And previously, Valley Link had never had an investment policy, but should we be lucky enough to receive more funds like that, we definitely need to explore getting an investment policy in the event we do get funds like that in the future.
I have no issue with that,
No,
but I'm assuming that we are not keeping any grant money, that the grant is meant for a grant and for a purpose, and you are expending that grant money.
We're definitely expending.
We are.
Thank you.
And I get your point with regards to making the statement that you made. All right, so if I can please get a motion for 4B.
Make a motion.
We have a motion
Second.
and we have a second. McCorson is the motion and Wright is the second.
Yes.
Benoit,
Yes.
Robert,
Aye.
Hudson,
Aye.
Marshall,
Aye.
Horace,
Yes.
Nywood,
Aye. Yes.
Brickman,
Yes.
Stepper,
Yes.
Testa,
Yes.
Hoover,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Hernandez.
Aye. All right. Item number 5 is R09 2024 delegation of authority to execute director of right-of-way acquisition activities. And you have a small staff report on this.
We do. Thank you, Chair. And I'll be, this is circling back from the September board meeting where we first introduced the item of right-of-way and what the next steps were as far as how we would recommend acquiring right-of-way and what some of those options are. And for this staff report, we've invited Bob Morrison, who is our consultant expert in right-of-way and has suggestions and is going to give a presentation for the board to consider which option works best.
Good afternoon. Again, my name is Bob Morrison. I have a quick PowerPoint that we're going to just kind of go over the right-of-way process and procedures and then discuss some options for you moving forward. Part of the reason why we're here today is we're in the planning phase of purchasing the real property. Essentially, we'll be purchasing a sliver acquisitions equal to the dimensions of the right-of-way necessary for the train. So we're along the 580 corridor, we'll be buying a lot of frontages along frontage roads. So with that in mind, if we go to the next slide. Today, we're going to talk about the right-of-way and the utility needs. We'll talk about the right-of-way processes and procedures and the utility relocation process. Talk about the property owner rights, the oversight agency roles, the various approvals that need to happen throughout the process, and then the delegations. So again, this is it may seem like we're early in the process, but we're working closely with the FTA right now to get a project management plan approved. One of the approvals is, do you have processes and procedures in place to acquire real property? So next slide, please. So you're familiar with the alignment, the 22 miles. There's section 1, which is in the 580 corridor, and then section 2A and 2B, which are along the Altamont Pass, and then extending into the Mountain House community. And then next slide, if you can go again. Then along the 580 corridor, we're going to be, it'll be necessary to acquire rights from about 112 parcels, including roughly 70 owners. That includes 80 private parcels and 32 public parcels. And there may be up to 5 businesses that we need to relocate and potentially 1 resident. Along the Altamont Pass and adjacent to 580, there are 34 parcels, and a majority of the right-of-way will be in the Alameda County Transportation Corridor. And there may be up to 4 relocations in that area. Next slide, please. So in terms of utilities, we're going to be working with 19 different utility companies in section 1 to relocate the various impacts to those utilities. That includes 83 potential conflicts, and as the design matures, the conflicts become more apparent. Same in section 2, we'll have 47 conflicts with 7 utility companies. So next slide. So the right-of-way process is very regulated, but generally the process includes the designers design what needs to happen. The surveyors go out and determine what the existing rights are, and then they marry the two and say, okay, what additional rights are necessary for the project? The appraised by law, going back to the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution, to acquire property, there must be just compensation. So we appraise the property, get an independent reviewer. Then the agency has to approve just compensation. We work through and negotiate with the property owners, and any displacees, we'll relocate them. And then we'll work through escrow and negotiate in good faith, and then close the deals and have the property for construction. Next slide, please. So there are a number of regulatory requirements. Again, these all stem from the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution. Essentially, there are, there's the federal and state regs, but we have lots of friends overlooking our shoulder, including Caltrans and FTA. So they're going to be our partners in this. Let me go to the next slide. So similarly, the utility process is much like the right-of-way process, where you identify what you have, what the existing utilities are. You then determine what the design is and what the impacts are, and then negotiate with the utility company as to who moves that utility out of the way of the proposed project. So then next slide. So property owner rights, one of the important things is this is very, very regulated, and our role is to work with each property owner. Again, there's about 140 parcels that will be impacted, but really only about 100 private property owners we'll be dealing with. We'll provide them a brochure that outlines their rights, and we'll discuss the who, what, where, when, and why. This should not be a surprise to them because they've been involved and been invited to all of the environmental meetings as well. So the idea is, when we're knocking on the door to acquire their property, this should not be the first time, but often it is. So that's our job, to train them up and understand what their rights are, because they often haven't participated. But what we do is we give them the opportunity to understand it. They have the right to get their own appraisal. We're doing our appraisal as well, and then we negotiate in good faith. Next slide, please. For those that are going to be displaced by the project, there is 1 residence, and there may be a couple others. As the design matures, we end up finding folks who are living where you wouldn't think they're living, but they're entitled to relocation benefits. And we work with them to find new places and find a comparable location for them. And often they're paying a lower rent and we have to pay that rent differential. So we give them amount of money to move. We'll also pay for the physical move. And right now, the big issue is if you're an owner resident with the interest rates higher, they often bought at a lower rate. So we also pay a mortgage differential. And then we give them, hey, here's a place for you to go. That's our job, is to make sure that they are able to find a place. In terms of businesses, the difference is they don't get that rent differential. But what they are entitled to is a goodwill, a claim, where if their business the value of their business goes down because of this, they can file a claim. So we work with them to file those goodwill valuation claims as well. And then similarly, we reestablish them in the new locations. So if we go on. So again, we have lots of friends that'll be making sure we're doing everything right. You are the condemning agency by the bylaws and the statutes. You have the power of eminent domain. So you are ultimately responsible for all of these acquisitions. However, Caltrans will be ensuring that we follow all of their processes and procedures, because essentially they're going to be owning what we're acquiring, right? We're shifting 580 over, and they want to make sure that we're acquiring what their needs are. And then local agencies will be doing the same. So each community where we're shifting a roadway, they'll be having to accept that right of way into their operation and maintenance. So Caltrans will also be in a quality assurance role, and FTA plays an important role as well. So they oversee and will review every appraisal over $1 million, and they're also doing any settlement over $500,000 above the appraisal. So in each right-of-way transaction, there are over 20 approvals necessary. So we have about 100 plus transactions. That's 20 approvals. That's 2,000 check boxes that need to go through. And the utility agreements is not quite as onerous, but each agreement does require about 5 approvals. Next slide, please. So what we're requesting is we will come to you with a budget in both section 1 and section 2 on a per parcel basis, and we'll tally it up per section. And we're requesting a delegation up to that approved budget to the executive director for him to sign those 20 documents. And that includes establishing just compensation and reaching, if we reach a settlement, signing the purchase and sale agreements. And then accept the right-of-way and also sign any right-of-way certifications that the feds require us to sign. That's one option. There are 3 checkboxes on the resolution. That's option number 1. Option number 2 is that we come to you with every transaction and every approval. So we would establish just compensation and approve any settlements. And then finally, there's a middle ground, which is the delegation of all right-of-way and utility agreements up to $1 million. We would still come to you in a closed session with an approval, but anything over $1 million, we would come to you for those transactions specifically. So the 3 delegations, none of these, you will still have the approval of condemnation authority. There's nothing that cannot be delegated. That is your responsibility. We as staff will come to you if we reach an impasse. And then we will work in closed session through a conference with a real property negotiator to highlight the issues related to the negotiations. So our goal and staff recommendation is option number 1, which is to delegate the authority to the executive director after an approved budget. So we would come back to you in probably spring with that budget. We would then work with you to ensure that we are in a position to negotiate. if there are any specific directions or issues, we would report out on those. If we reach an impasse with the property owner, where they're simply not, they don't feel that we're negotiating in good faith, or we're just too far apart. Often it comes down to compensation. We would come back to you and ask, give our recommendation, but ask for your advice as well and direction. So with that, I think the last slide, I think, is kind of a timeline. Again, we're here a little early in the process. It may seem early, but again, we are asking FTA to approve our project management plan, which is kind of an initial foray into getting some additional funding out of the feds. So one of the items there is a right-of-way acquisition management plan that I'm preparing. Again, the big issue is we cannot begin anything until after the NEPA clearance is done. It's within that NEPA process and that the CEQA process where property owners have been at least alerted about the project and had an opportunity to participate. We don't really see appraisals beginning until after summer, and negotiations won't begin until late 2025. So that kind of gives you a timeline and the request. I think at this point, we'd open it up for questions.
We'll bring it back to the board for any clarifying questions. Go ahead, Director Rickman.
Thank you, Chair. How long is this going to take? I mean, I understand, you're looking at over 140 parcels. And that's if everything goes great. So two-part question. If everything goes great, how long it's going to take? If there's impasse, if there's eminent domain issues, if there's due process issues. So,
So what I'm going to give you the if everything goes well. So right now, the surveyors are just beginning to define the rights. And so, and the designers are still determining the areas necessary. And that's the key, because the designer needs to stand up and say, this is truly necessary for this project. And that won't be done until summer. So once we have that, then the appraisal process takes about 4 months. Then the approvals through FTA, and Kevin as well, right? He's actually, I've worked with Kevin on other projects, and he's very good at making sure we're on the up and up.
just to kind of shorten this, I understand the process, but I just want to know.
So a year to negotiate, a year for condemnation.
Okay.
Normally, when we did the 300 parcels in San Joaquin County, I think Bob and I did when he was with this other firm, working through the Caltrans process, it generally took between 18 and 24 months. I think what Bob was looking for was maybe optimistic and a pessimistic schedule. If you look at the range, we put in the schedule 18 to 24 months.
There you go.
All right, beautiful. Thank you.
Sorry.
Go ahead. You're welcome. Go ahead, King Joe.
So the dynamite there is the eminent domain, which is kind of a dangerous job for politicians generally. Let's face it, nobody wants to get involved in those kind of fights. So what happens since this is happening in Alameda County? What happens if they band together and decide to fight us? What is our option at that point?
So we do have general counsel here that can speak to that. I can give some intro.
Sure. So assuming we are not able to reach an agreement with the property owner, we would come back to you and ask you to adopt a resolution of necessity. After that, we then prepare a complaint and file it in court and start the process. It really goes on two different tracks. One is for our ultimate ability to acquire the property, which can take 18 months, 2 years, some time to get through the court process. However, there's a process where we can immediately acquire the property. We deposit what we believe is the probable compensation. It goes actually to the state treasurer. And the owners are allowed to withdraw that if they need it. But that way we get immediate access to the property and the project continue. It won't affect the fact that the property owner is objecting or trying to block the acquisition of the property will not affect our construction schedule because we'll have right of immediate possession of that property. I would just say in my experience, and I've done this for 30 years, the property owners have a different, I mean, there's money's at stake. And there are attorneys that represent property owners that are looking to make money in the process. We're absolutely required under the Constitution, and the laws that govern this are very protective of property owner rights. They were revised to deal with abuses from, before the 1970. So I think it's a very fair process. It's not going to be, everybody's not going to agree with the price. Everybody's not going to agree with the outcome, but I think it's for a government activity, it's a pretty well regulated, and I think it works pretty well. And I've seen a lot of people come out just fine from the process because of some of the things that Bob mentioned in terms of mortgage additions and stuff. It's really meant to be protective and not hurt people too much. So, obviously nobody wants to move. Nobody wants to have to give up title to their property. It's not fun. It's not convenient. But I think I think for this process goes a long way to try to make it acceptable.
Thank you.
Director Hudson.
Yeah, it's been, I would just say that most of the people that are against losing their house become for it when you go to eminent domain because it ends up in their best interest. I mean, it always seems to be that when you go to a jury trial, it ends up somehow in their favor. I'll leave it at that. Have you had that experience in your dealings with what you're doing at San Joaquin?
Well, I feel like out of the 300 parcels we worked on, everyone wanted to start out at eminent domain, and none of them ended that way, with the exception of one guy who wanted, he wanted inverse condemnation. He wanted us to buy him out for his unpermitted chicken coop that he converted into a house without a permit. And it's about $5,000. And not every case ends up that way. There's a lot of businesses that I was involved in with Bob and his staff previously, and a lot of them did end up better in the circumstances because of the Uniform Act, because of negotiations.
Text David and let him know that.
We do have we have to make sure that we are not doing any gift to public funds.
Yeah.
But I would say that as we move forward in this process and move out of the environmental phase, this will be the subject of many more discussions. This isn't the last time this board will hear about right away. You'll be happy when we're done with it, most likely. But yeah, most of the time, I haven't seen any cases where someone ended up worse off than usually it was they ended up better, even if they didn't want to say that. They ended up in a better position because sometimes they had other situations or seconds out on their house. We can't put somebody into bankruptcy. So if someone owes money on their house and maybe there's a recession, it's not worth the value, we still have to pay off what's owed on it. And that's something that will come back to the board. That's part of all that negotiation. There's also mandatory settlement conferences that will sit in a room with business owners and for 8 hours until we strike a deal. And still we have a threshold that the board would grant me. And if there's an issue, then I come back to the board and we discuss with legal counsel.
You do those 8 hours without the board, right?
Correct. If I come out of there without an agreement, it means I failed. So I don't want to do that.
Okay, any other questions? Go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, just a question. I think it was mentioned that there were about 140 parcels that needed to be addressed. Is it necessary to acquire all of those? Or in some cases for larger parcels, would they be subdivided and only, we'd only purchase the
so
parcel that's needed?
Exactly. So we're not buying the whole parcel. We're buying often, if it's 300-foot parcel, we're buying the area necessary for the project equal to the width of the right of way that say is going down 580, the middle of 580. So let's say it's 50 feet or 80 feet. We're going to be buying that equivalent amount from that parcel. So it's maybe of the 300-foot parcel, the example I'm giving you, we would be buying 80 feet. And then that's where it becomes tricky as an appraiser. Someone needs to go in and say, okay, I'm buying, you only have 220 feet left. Can you still operate your business? Can you still do it? That's why we have very specialized appraisers coming in to do this type of effort.
Will there be any need for permanent easements to be established?
There will be permanent easements. Sometimes the road easements are the permanent easements. So the local road, there's a domino effect if we have a frontage road, and we're putting the train down the middle of 580, then that frontage road has to go out and that permanent easement would go onto that property. And there may be needs for utility easements as well. Yeah.
So it's not the full parcel, it's
Mhm.
what Bob said,
Mm.
That's not.
Right.
As far as easements, operating in the middle of 580 is under a joint lease maintenance agreement with Caltrans. The state's not going to sell that right away. Similarly, with Alameda County Transportation Corridor, you may enter into an easement with them, so they don't have to relinquish any property. It can be a 100-year type easement with very low cost to us, just because they preserve that right away corridor.
Okay, and I would presume that any franchise rights that Caltrans has for any roads that are affected would remain. Caltrans would still have those franchise rights afterward.
Yeah.
Okay.
Caltrans is approving all the plans for 580.
Right.
So they have all the freeway users that have to be.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Easy question. All my questions are easy. How did you, if we were to consider option 3, how did you derive $1 million? Maybe I missed something. Maybe you can remind me that I should know. But if you look at all the transactions, the different situations, how did you arrive at $1 million for delegation?
Yeah, so the $1 million is similar to the FTA
Okay.
threshold. And so that was the derivation, is it's equal to the threshold that FTA is granted to agencies for the review of the appraisals. And that number is also, we haven't finished the budgeting exercise, but it's also, I honestly I would say it's about 20% of the parcels that are going to be impacted in that threshold, but we'll have a better sense.
That was my next question. You answered it.
But I don't have a final budget, so don't hold me to that yet.
That's
We'll
okay.
come, we are going to come regardless of what decision you choose. We're going to be coming to you in closed session to discuss the budget.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Not seeing any other hands, I'll go ahead and open up to public comment. Hi, Roland.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity. What I would like to briefly touch on is what I didn't hear anything about, something called Union Pacific. So I'm looking at your the plan on the Valley Link project. And there is an area about halfway between South Front Road and Mountain House community, which is flagged in red. And you read the legend, it says UPRR interface. Now, if anybody thinks that the laws of this country allow you to eminent domain Union Pacific property, I would respectfully suggest that you revisit the issue, because currently the High Speed Rail Authority is still trying to acquire parcels from Union Pacific. They've been trying to acquire since 2015. Thank you.
Thank you, Roland. Yeah,
Just to clarify, we're not acquiring any right away from Union Pacific. We're seeking access for the purposes of construction, and we've been talking to Union Pacific for the last 2 to 3 years about this, and that's why they reserved in the staff report. It said they were going to wait till we finished, got to where we're at now in order to move forward with the agreement that they're going to sign after we sign.
Thank you for adding that clarification.
They have an established process for giving permits for a construction adjacent to property. So it's a relatively easy issue. I mean, it's a fascinating legal issue in terms of trying to condemn a railroad. And I've written a paper on the subject, but that's not coming up for us. Thank God.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, not seeing any other public comment. I'll bring it back to the board for any further discussion. Go ahead.
So I like either one or three. I think two is ridiculously cumbersome and there's no reason to bring everything to us. I'm kind of leaning toward three because if we've got something over $1 million, I think that deserves board scrutiny. So that's my thinking. I'll wait till other people talk to consider a motion.
Thank you. Do we have any other?
I would agree.
Go ahead.
I would agree. Let me turn this thing on.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I'm leaning towards three as well. It gives us some flexibility. And it also gives adequate room for them to make discretionary negotiations, we'll say. So I would look to see what we've done or I've seen in other jurisdictions, and it's very similar. At least you have kind of a checks and balances. So I would agree with and support three.
Okay, does the board feel comfortable getting some head nods? All right, so then we will go ahead and ask for a motion for item number 3 on the list that was indicated on the slide.
Madam Chair.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for selecting item number 3 for option 3. I believe it
I'm the
was,
second.
and it was Rickman. Correct, Rickman? Oh, it was, oh, I thought I heard something over there. Was it Akinjo?
Oh, no, I had a question.
Oh.
For the motion, maybe.
All right, okay. We already have a second. Go ahead.
Could we
So-
have a combination of 1 and 3? Is that possible, council?
Three is a combo.
3 is the combination.
Of 1, includes 1?
All right.
All right, then Director Rickman, you can second now.
I'll make the motion then. if the
Thank
motion
you.
wasn't made.
Thank you.
And I'll second that if you need a second.
All right, now we have a motion by Wright and a second by Rickman. Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye. So item number 6 is the executive director's report. This is just for informational item.
Madam Chair, is your mic on, CEO?
Why don't you go up?
Trying to get it to work and so for my report, we would like to revisit 2A on the agenda just because it's a very important part of today's board meeting. And whether you choose to have it come after the election of chair and vice chair is up to the board, but we're ready to do that either before or after the next item. So to get to the executive director's report, I would say over the course of the last month, we were required by Federal Transit Administration and any time you have federal funds, whether it's FHWA, FTA, or FRA, we're required to have what's called a value engineering analysis of the project. And what that means is for projects, it used to be, I think the threshold was $500 million. I think it's now down to $50 million. We have to assemble a team basically outside of our group to come in and really like pick apart the project and see how we can save money And so a panel was assembled consisting of members from MTC, ACTC, Caltrans, FRA, FTA, FHWA to look at ideas on how we could save money on this project. Now, granted, it's one of those situations where a lot of things get thrown at the wall and some of them aren't necessarily viable to implement, but some of them are very good ideas. We will have a report that they're currently drafting and finalizing the draft so that we can come back and show the board. But initially, I think the savings, and correct me if I'm wrong, Will, if you were to implement all of the ideas, I think it was between 200 and $600 million worth of savings on the project. And there are some definitely keepers in there that we want to look at. And I left out BART. We had a lot of BART staff on that team. I shouldn't have left them out, but they're very important from an operational perspective. So we're looking forward to bringing that back to the board to show what those ideas were and whether they are feasible to implement or not as part of the project, and if they could save us money.
All right.
And with that, I would just say if we could move on to item 2A so we can.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know, I just wanted to run this last meeting all by myself here. This is what happens when you're trying to run a meeting with a stuffy head. We will definitely go back to item 2A. I can't believe none of my board members stepped up and say, Madam Chair, what's happening with item 2.8? So at this time,
Self-serving on
at this time, it's a recognition of outgoing board members and state elected officials. And this is really important because we have a lot of key players that have been with, this organization Valley Link for many years, but also the fact that we don't do this on our own. We do this with a lot of conversations and people working behind the scenes tirelessly and constantly making those communication calls and trying to work it also not only on both the county levels, but at also the fact of the state level as well. So at this time, I would like to recognize Director Dan Wright, sitting right to the right of me. Director Wright has been an invaluable member of the Valley Link Board, serving from 2021 to 2024 and representing the city of Stockton. He has served as the Vice Chair of the Valley Link Board since 2023. He has been a resident of Stockton since 1993 and a council member from District 2 since 1999. He has recently.
That's a misstatement since 2015.
Okay, 2015. He recently has been selected to serve on the Delta College Board of Trustees. And on behalf of the Valley Link board members and staff, we sincerely thank you, Director Wright, for the contribution that you have made towards advancing and implementing Valley Link, this rail project. And we appreciate all your thoughtfulness in all the meetings and also just for being part of this committee that, like I said, is on its way to see light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
So please.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I'm just proud to be a part of this effort. I know there are bumps in the road, and for the community members who expressed their comments today, I understand what you're saying. We're going to have to find a way through on this process, and I encourage collaboration at all levels. I'll continue to watch this as I move forward. I don't consider myself done with elected politics. Obviously, I ran for the community college board successfully. So who knows? I may make my way back here. Thanks.
Absolutely. We'll take it back. We'll take it back. Director David Hudson. Director Hudson has electrifying presence on the Valley Link board, serving from 2021 to 2024 as a representative from the city of San Ramon. He is, as of last night, was the current mayor of San Ramon, and previously a 5-term San Ramon City Council member, as well as in numerous other terms as mayor in the past. His accomplishments and contributions to regional governance in the Bay Area are vast and far too numerous to even take a stab at listing at this meeting because we'll be here all day long. We have been honored to have him serve on the Valley Link board and sincerely thank him for the contribution he has made toward advancing the implementation Valley Link Rail Project. And I also want to thank you for your knowledge in transportation and for many years of dedication, not only to the city of San Ramon, but to all the other committees that you sit on as well.
Thank you. And like Director Wright, I will be brief. I got to hear them all last night. I don't need to hear them again.
That's brief for me.
Yeah. But I would like to find out who is on that from MTC on that committee. Is it still on County Connection? I can lobby a representative on MTC and remind him that this is a priority. It's not just Innovate 680. And that will be hard, but sometimes they need reminders. I have to call Andrew direct. And thank you for this. I look forward to seeing what ends up being the final project and what the first and last mile look like once we decide where it's at.
Well, we'll definitely,
Thank you.
you'll have an invitation in the mail for the ribbon cutting.
Oh, we like that. I'm looking at the boss. Yeah, she'll let me come.
Our next recognition is Senator Susan Tamaltas Eggman. No, I want to go back, sorry. That does not look like Senator Eggman. Director Jose Nuno, we have been honored to have Jose Nuno on the Valley Link Board since 2023, representing the city of Manteca. Director Nuno has been a member of Manteca City Council since December of 2018 and served as vice mayor in 2020. On behalf of the Valley Link board members and staff, we sincerely thank Director Nuno for the contribution he has made toward advancing the implementation of the Valley Link rail project. And I also want to say thank you for coming back to your city council and making it whole. I know that, sometimes city councils go in different directions and they need someone to step up to the plate, and you did exactly that. So not only do you care about your community, but I know that your heart is still with this project as well.
No, thank you, Chair. Definitely being part of the Valley Link was important to me. I know there's a lot of connectivity happening with Manteca. I'm serving on this board along with the ACE, and I saw it as very connected. I know there's a lot of background Kevin has with both sides, and the next person to represent from Manteca, I briefed the mayor and said, it's important to have representation and be present because there's a lot of good work happening and more to be done. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And you will also get an invitation in the mail. All right. Our next one is Senator Susan Talamantes Eggman. It is truly an honor to have this opportunity today to recognize the Honorable Susan Talamantes Eggman for her contribution to Valley Link Rail Project. A leader with decades of experience in public servants and community building, Dr. Eggman was elected to the State Senate in November of 2020, serving the 5th Senate District. She served in the State Assembly from December of 2012 through November of 2020, and prior to that was a Stockton City Council member and was a professor of social work at California State University, Sacramento. Dr. Eggman was born in Alameda County, raised in Stanislaus County, and now resides in Stockton, perhaps desisting her to link our two valleys someday. She joined the U.S. Army out of high school and served 4 years as a medic. After her service, she attended California State University, Stanislaus, where she completed a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's degree in social work. She worked as a mental health provider and medical social worker before completing a PhD at Portland State University. Throughout her tenure in the legislature, Dr. Eggman demonstrated and dogged committed to advancing policies and programs to improve the quality of life of the people she served. She had a proven record of working across partisan divides to find working solutions to real problems. Assembly Bill 758 is the embodiment of this commitment. A bill she authorized with Assembly Member Catherine Baker from our Contra Costa County. Through their dogged determination, this bill was passed in the very last minutes of 2017 legislative session and established the Tri-Valley San Joaquin Valley Regional Rail Authority and the Valley Link Rail Project. Since the establishment of the authority in January of 2018, Dr. Eggman has continued to support Valley Link through the introduction of additional legislation she introduced and passed in the Senate, SB 548, SB 746, and SB 1068. Both bills will have an impactful results on the project and ensure its continued trajectory toward success. On behalf of the Valley Link Board members and staff, we sincerely thank Dr. Susan Talamantes Eggman for her leadership and commitment to the Valley Link Rail project. And our last Assembly member that we will be recognizing is Carlos Villapuda. I'm also privileged to recognize the Honorable Carlos Villapuda contribution to Valley Link Rail project. As a former Assembly member for the past 4 years and a San Joaquin County Supervisor, he has helped to raise the profile of Valley Link and parlay state resources to advance the project. Some of Assembly members Villapuda's long list of accomplishments include engaging with former Speaker Anthony Rendon to push for funding hydrogen in the state budget, advocating for the SB 125 funding, which provides over $5 billion statewide for public transit operations and capital, nearly $1 billion for MTC and $93 million for San Joaquin. This includes publicly advocating for funding before this SJCOG board, supporting Valley Link's $25 million award in state funds for planning work in the Valley Link corridor, supporting legislation to provide Valley Link with the opportunity to provide electric hydrogen, SB 746, supporting legislation allowing Valley Link to acquire the ability to potential expedite delivery of the Valley Link project through the construction manager general contractor procurement method, SB 1068. On behalf of the Valley Link Board and staff, we sincerely thank Assemblymember Villapadua for his leadership and commitment to Valley Link Rail Project. So again, I would like to thank all of our board members that are sitting here that will be going on to your next venture and maybe retirement. And so from the entire board, we want to thank you. I would like to just quickly take a quick picture. If we can all just stand and bring Mr. Hudson over here.
Are you just gonna do it with the small group?
No, we'll just do all stand up.
Oh.
And then-
Get these guys up in front.
You gotta get your, plaque.
Wow, okay. Oh.
You guys gotta get your plaque.
Bring your plaques.
Okay. Should we come down?
Maybe like half of you guys down here.
I'll go down.
Cause you guys have to fill.
Want us to go
Just,
down?
I think some, and then some, so that, they could-
Actually, Dave.
No, everybody- Oh, Dave's coming up. Do you want to go down, Dave?
Oh, okay. We're coming down in front. It's all right. Come on down. Come on down front. It's all right. Sorry. New room every time.
Very nice.
Chair, if you don't mind, we have one more acknowledgement for our outgoing chair, because today we're going to be hoping to elect the next chair and vice chair, but we do have something to give you.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Everybody wants to make me laugh.
Don't carry those in a bag. And
Those are
I
very
would just like to say on the behalf of staff, your time as chair and as mayor of Dublin and on ACTC and on Valley Link for, I think, since what, 2018 or somewhere around there. And also going over to BART and then being back on Valley Link and maintaining your chair here. And also I should mention you're on ACE, an alternate to San Joaquin's JPA and also Capital Corridor. So I think from a rail perspective, you've got almost every rail agency covered, except for maybe Caltrain and one other. But I just want to take time to thank you. You've been a very strong advocate of Valley Link. You helped us with the question about the $5 million earmark that came up. You were instrumental in helping us secure that $5 million from our local and our state elected officials. And we really appreciate your time and are glad you're going to still be on the board, but you've been great and extremely helpful to Valley Link as a chair. Appreciate
Thank you.
that.
I really appreciate all the kind words that you have brought forward. And honestly, it has been, that picture is horrible, by the way.
You're just concentrating.
No, honestly, it's been an honor to be able to serve and now to be able to keep going forward with BART and the Capital Corridor and to be able to have so much transportation experience. I know that I'm still learning. I don't have as much experience as Director Hudson. I know I'm going to beat you one day, but definitely it's been an honor to be able to be on all the transportation boards. And again, you don't do this by yourself. You do this with all the board members here. And I know Kevin and I, we communicate a lot. Now Bob Powers and I are communicating a lot because you look to leadership with folks that have a lot of knowledge. And that's one thing that I've always have wanted to surround myself with knowledgeable people so that you're constantly learning. Even Roland, when Roland comes up here, I always learn from something from him as well. But I've been honored to be the chair. It's been, a great roller coaster since day one back in 2018. And that's why I said it's been an honor because we will be seeing light at the end of the tunnel. At this time, I would like to move forward to item 7B, which is 7A, which is the election of the chair and the vice chair. And following with all these great words from the entire board members, I think it would be best, as we all know, the routine that we go from Alameda County to San Joaquin County and we alternate. So for the folks that are new to the board, we tend to do that so that we are fully looking at both counties, and also Contra Costa County as well has been a great input onto this board. But definitely we will keep the tradition of rotating back and forth. And so at this time, I would like to recommend to the board as Supervisor Robert Rickman as our next chairperson.
Second.
And we have I have a motion and we have a second. And then we could also just go right ahead and
I'd
go
like
with
to
the
move
discussion for the
Mayor
vice chair.
Marchand as the vice chair.
All right. And so we have a motion for the vice chair of John Marchand.
Second.
And we have a second. All right, so we'll go ahead and both do the chair and the vice chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Marchand,
Aye.
McCarthy,
Aye.
Hybrid,
Aye.
Yes.
Rickman,
Yes.
Pepper,
Yes.
Chester,
Yes.
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 Hernandez.
Aye. All right. So, Chair Rickman, would you like to go ahead and go with, take over for item B?
No, you're doing a great job over there. So- And thank you.
All right, so item number B is the discussion of comments, questions, and any agenda requests for the future.
I had to step real quick. Hey, I just want to say, it's been a pleasure working with Dan, Jose, and Dave. I know Jose and Dan, and we had to say our goodbyes to Dan at the Groundwater Authority today. So it's been thank you for all you do, not just for, Alameda County, but my district here, District 5 and San Joaquin County as a whole. We appreciate it. We're gonna miss you guys. I'm sure I'll see you two quite often. And our chair, thank you very much. You've done a heck of a job. And one thing I admire about you and I appreciate about you being the chair of this board is, if I had a question or whatever it may be, I can pick up the cell phone and give you a holler. So thank you for all you do, and I really appreciate it. And I'm going to end it with Merry Christmas, everybody, and God
Merry
bless.
Christmas. And I will definitely be calling you, so make sure you answer your phone. Our upcoming meetings, we're going on to item number 8. Is our upcoming meeting details is the next regular meeting will be scheduled as agreed on item 4D that we already approved of. And we will be meeting in Alameda County side at our next meeting. So again, we are now adjourned at 3:17. Thank you.